Welcome back, everybody, to 10 Questions With, powered by Honda. Today's guest is our Vice President of Baseball Operations and International Scouting. He's a former Assistant General Manager, former Scouting Director, attended Brock and won a national championship there. We're really pleased to have Andrew Tinnish. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, TJ. Appreciate it.
All right, man. First question comes from Andrew. My son plays 12U AA rep ball in Thornhill. He's an awesome third baseman, first baseman, and a great pitcher too. How can you get him noticed from a college perspective, and how to help sector his future as he gets older, bigger, and stronger?
Good question. I guess the one thing that's, that they have going for them is time. At 12 years old, obviously you're several years away from college recruiters, but I think right now the main thing I'd focus on is reps, right? Just lots of long toss, lots of swings, lots of ground balls, lots of fly balls, whatever it is. But when you do get a little closer and, that could be 15, 16 years old, and you really feel like this is the route that you have a chance that you want to go down and that you have an opportunity to go down, then it's probably being a little bit more proactive about getting yourself out there. Challenge yourself to play against the best competition at all times. Try out for, the top level team in your area. I know TJ, you guys have the T12 tryouts every year, and I'm not sure exactly what age they should start going to that, whether that's 15, 16, 17, but that's something to consider. I think being proactive about getting yourself, your swing, your delivery, whatever on video. I know a lot of coaches and scouts follow the flat ground pitching and hitting app on Twitter. We have people that look at it on a daily basis. I'm sure other organizations do, and I'm positive that colleges in the US and Canada do as well. So there's a few things there.
That's awesome, man. Next question comes from Mike. Could you talk about the importance of overall athleticism and talk about kind of X factors? We have a lot of kids who feel disappointed that they aren't as good as their favorite players at certain positions, but they're good at other ones.
Yeah, I guess I to start, I wouldn't be too discouraged if, you want to be a shortstop and you're not a great shortstop yet. And maybe you're pretty good at second or third base and, you're looking up to a Bo Bichette or something like that. Don't get too discouraged, especially as a youngster. Continue to work hard and play hard. From a scouting perspective, you look at the traditional 5 tools, right? You've got hit, power, run, throw, and field. But for me, athleticism and makeup are just as important, if not more important than some of those tools, especially when you're looking at younger players. And I think that things like athleticism give you as a scout, and makeup for that matter, give you as a scout more confidence that a player is going to ultimately reach that ceiling. If you project a player to be an above average hitter at the major league level, it's not just because you see him go, 5 for 10 in, over a weekend in Mississauga. It's because you like the athleticism, you like the swing, you feel confident that the player has the makeup characteristics, that grit, determination, work ethic to ultimately get to that at the end, right? So being a good athlete is important. And, athleticism isn't just straight up strength or like straight ahead running speed. It's sort of that multi-directional ability to kind of move and react to the game as it goes on, right? It's that ability to have, a flexibility, athleticism, and looseness in your swing or delivery, where a scout may feel like, hey, this player, maybe there's something I don't like about the swing or that needs to be adjusted in the delivery. The athlete who has some makeup and intelligence has the best chance of making those adjustments and chances of being more successful down the road.
Awesome, man. Next question comes from Mike. What's the conversation like with a player that you identify as a draft potential, but you sit them down and talk that you might like him at another position? How does that go?
I think it varies. It certainly depends on what type of positional change you're talking about. But generally speaking, like the ones that stand out the most in my mind or minds of scouts, I would imagine are the the infielder who's converting to catcher, or the position player who's converting to pitcher. The latter one can be challenging because, every position player thinks he can hit, right? And the last thing they want to do is put the bat down and go on the mound. I remember a fairly high profile one back in, I want to say it was around 2008 or so. Casey Kelly, the Boston Red Sox took towards the end of the first round. He was a high school shortstop, but he was also a starting pitcher, and he was very good at both, but their intention was to make him a pitcher, and they actually let him hit that first summer out. But certainly there were conversations along the way that, hey, this is kind of how and where we sort of see you. And I think, look, the conversations aren't easy because typically the players you're talking about drafting are competitive by nature and have a lot of confidence. But at the end of the day, we're doing it based on our sort of scouting and evaluating and coaching opinion. We're doing it because we feel like this is the player's best possible chance to get to the big leagues, which is the ultimate, the ultimate goal. So it might be that sort of shorter, I don't want to say stockier, but like that infielder who's got really good hands and decent arm strength, but maybe doesn't have that quick sort of, or enough range to kind of profile on the infield, but you feel like they have the hands and other things to, and maybe leadership skills to get behind the plate. So again, not always easy conversations, but I think if you're honest and you present it to the player, you present the reasons why, and with the ultimate goal being, hey, this is what we see you as in the future. This is what we feel like is the best route for you to get to the big leagues. Generally speaking, they'll understand. They may not like it right away, and it may take some time, and certainly there's a trust component there. But I think that they'll respect it if you present it, with a plan.
Yeah, that's great insight, man. Next question comes from Donna. I read an article that you attended MLB Scout School. Can you describe what Scout School is, and did you finish top of the class?
That's a good question. Did I finish top of the class? I don't know if they had a grading scale. I certainly learned a lot. I went to Scout School back in the fall of 2002, and I was very fortunate that my instructor was Walt Burrows, who you guys know well, Canadian baseball legend with the Minnesota Twins now, and I learned a lot from Walt. But basically, the Scout School program is like a condensed 2-week program to get you ready, more than anything, to become an area scout. So you learn the ins and outs of how to evaluate. You learn a process of kind of what to do when you get to the ballpark, and you learn everything that's involved with drafting and signing a player. And it's not as simple as just going to the ballpark and watching a player and saying, I like this guy and he's got tools. There's just so much more that goes into it as an area scout. And TJ, this, that the area scouts at the amateur and international level are the lifeblood of these organizations, our organization, because really that's sort of that first view that we get at the players that we'll draft and ultimately sign. So it was a lot of writing reports, watching video, listening to different instructors give presentations on breaking down deliveries and swings and fielding mechanics and things like that. But also learning how to go into a family's home and ask questions and try and get answers about what their goals and passions and desires are. So it was a long, and challenging 2 weeks, but extremely valuable lessons learned for sure.
Awesome. Next question comes from Jeremy. What, in your opinion, is the best way for amateur baseball players in Canada to use technology to their advantage to be seen until we get back to normal post-pandemic?
Sure. Well, I mentioned it earlier. I think that video is important. If you're trying to get yourself out there to, let's say, college recruiters or scouts, like I said, like filming yourself taking swings or throwing a bullpen and uploading or posting on flat ground pitching or hitting is one valuable way. As far as more like specific technology, things like Rapsodo, for example, like it's not easy to get access to like some of the high tech stuff that colleges and professional teams have. But if you do somehow have access to throw a bullpen or hit with Rapsodo measuring your ball flight, then you have an idea of how your pitches model, and if there's someone there who knows how to use the unit and knows how to interpret the data, then they can probably help you on specific areas to improve on. That's maybe 1 out of 1,000 players in Canada, even the US for that matter, has access to that kind of tech. But I think ultimately, while we're in this pandemic, look, you can still go out and long toss. You can still go out and take some swings. You can still go out and work hard and find ways to improve. A lot of it is really self-discipline and how hard you're willing to work.
Absolutely. Next question comes from Wayne. The question that gets asked to all scouts: does anyone stand out as being the best player you've ever seen or evaluated?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, and there are certainly some players that stand out. Probably the one guy who really stands out the most for me was Francisco Lindor, and I saw him in high school back in the spring season of 2011 and the summer before, and I think what stood out for me with Lindor was all of those boxes that we talked about, like the 5 tools and then the athleticism and makeup component. You could really comfortably check all those boxes. Maybe power was the last one because he's not a big guy, but the way his swing worked at the time, and just the hard, consistent contact that he made, you felt like he had a chance to get to absolutely everything. I walk in the ballpark and I'm watching this kid out at shortstop during BP. It's not his round. Coach is hitting laser ground balls, probably like 40 or 50 at him. He's fielding the balls with his throwing arm behind his back, and he's not even coming close to making a mistake. He's fielding every ball clean, which is maybe not uncommon at the big league level, but for a 17-year-old kid to do that was pretty impressive. And that carried into infield, outfield, that carried into the game. Just the way he moved, his actions, his range, the way he threw the ball, you felt very comfortable that and this doesn't happen very, very often, but like stamping a young player, especially a high school player, as being a future plus defender at shortstop at the major league level is making a strong statement in a scouting report. And we felt like we were able to do that pretty comfortably. The bat obviously stood out, loose swing, switch hitter. He's probably the guy that stands out the most. Machado, Javier Baez, like guys like that also stand out from the pitching side. Guys like Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer. Funny, a bunch of those guys, about 4 of them were all in the same draft in 2011. But yeah, Lindor was that one guy where you just felt like really, really comfortably checking basically every box.
Awesome, man. Next question comes from Scott. Are there differences when you're evaluating players from different countries? For example, if you're watching a Canadian shortstop and a Dominican shortstop, are you looking for the same things, different things? Are you evaluating them differently?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think you have to understand the pedigree and the background and the reps and the sort of playing experience that they have. So, I'm probably going to look at Adam Hall differently than I would Wander Franco, and I think that, I've been fortunate enough to scout all over the world, certainly all over Latin America, North America, Asia, and a little bit in Europe. And, you do see sort of common themes and trends when you go to different countries. And even within Latin America, for example, like Dominican is very well known for, lean, wiry, loose, athletic shortstops with great actions and power bats and power arms. Not so much starters, but bullpen power arms that will ultimately run it up to 96 to 100 down the road. Take Venezuela and Puerto Rico. a little bit different. You've got a lot of catchers who come out of there. Canada, obviously, we're subject to lousy weather a lot of the year, and yeah, a lot of these guys will develop a little bit later. But in all honesty, the one thing that I find with evaluating Canadian players is you see a lot of players with good plans at the plate, good plate discipline, and you see a lot of players who really compete. And I don't know if that's the hockey mentality or what, but it is not uncommon to see like Canadians in international competition like competing really, really well. So I think the other thing is you're looking at these players at different ages. So now when I'm in Dominican Republic, well, in a non-pandemic time, when I'm in Dominican Republic, I'm very often looking at players who are 16, 15, 14, sometimes even 13. It kind of hit me the other day where I'm watching video of a player who could play on my son's team, which is kind of mind-boggling. So, in Dominican Republic and Venezuela as well, maybe less so, these kids are playing ball 6 days a week from the age 10 on, and they're living in academies and they're on the field sometimes 4 or 5 hours a day. So the curve, the sort of skill and strength curve is a little bit different, and you have to be aware of that.
Awesome. Next question comes from Bridget. What's the main advice you would give to a youth player that wants to continue baseball into college or professional baseball? Like, what's that one piece of advice you really want to give them?
Yeah, I'd say work hard and work smart. I think that, look, no matter what we do, there's always somebody working harder than us, right? But it doesn't mean that you can't get better every day. And that doesn't mean that you have to take swings every day or long toss every day or take 100 ground balls every day. But you really should have the mentality of trying to improve yourself at baseball every day. And again, like, that doesn't necessarily mean baseball activity. I'm a huge fan of multi-sports. So again, obviously we're in, difficult conditions right now where you can't necessarily just go down to a local gym and play an hour of basketball. But under regular circumstances, I think there's value to doing something like that from a competitive and athleticism perspective that will help you in baseball in the future. So really that's what it comes down to, is just focus on your goals, know what you want to achieve and accomplish, and work at them and think about them honestly on a daily basis.
That's great, man. Next question comes from Scott. Can you touch on your experiences growing up playing baseball in Canada? And as you go through it with your kids, what are the differences you've noticed from now to when you were growing up?
Yeah, I grew up in Ottawa, and I played East Nepean Little League my whole way up until my last year, and I played for a travel program called the Ottawa Nationals. And anyways, I had a great experience growing up. There's certainly, at least in my mind, there was a lot less opportunity and exposure at that time. I mean, this is going back, of course, to like early 90s. But great experiences, learned a lot, and really enjoyed the competition, and ultimately was able to play college baseball. But a lot of that I had to market myself in a sense. And a lot of it was like the old camcorder and writing letters to a lot of schools to see if anyone would write back. I feel like now it's a lot different now. Certainly part of it is being in this area in Southern Ontario, where there's a lot more, there's a lot more organizations that play highly competitive baseball versus just the smaller Ottawa area. And I guess from my son, I mean, look, when I grew up, I actually played house league until I was about 15 and didn't play rep ball until that summer. My son's been fortunate enough to play rep ball since his 10U year. And, it amazes me. Like, I feel like him and his teammates are just so much further ahead of where I was at the same stage. And hopefully I can sort of impart some wisdom on him and give him some thoughts and advice. I try to do it without, being too much of the crazy baseball dad. But at the end of the day, the most important thing for me, for my son, is that he loves the game and wants to play the game. And as long as that exists, that's the most important thing. And he's said to me that he wants to get to that next level and try to play college baseball someday. And I'll certainly do my best to help him along the way and guide and advise as best I can. But only if he wants it. I don't want to force it upon him.
Last question comes from Han Singh. Baseball Ontario has adapted the MLB's Pitch Smart recommendations. What are your thoughts based on your experience with your son's baseball playing, and what would you change or have any additional recommendations?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the MLB Pitch Smart guidelines. I think they do a really solid job of protecting young pitchers' arms. TJ, you know this as well as anybody, that throwing a baseball, again, whether it's, a 19-year-old who's throwing 90 miles an hour or a 12-year-old who's throwing 55, 60 miles an hour, it's still a stressful act. And it causes a lot of stress on the arm. So having sort of pitch counts and rest days sort of required or mandatory, for me does a really good job of keeping young pitchers safe. The one thing that I think is important to kind of take note of is, depending on the age level, you may have a maximum pitches in a day of, let's say, 55, 65, 75, 85, whatever it is, all the way up to 105, I believe, is the highest it gets to. And, the one thing I think coaches need to be cautious of or take note of is when you sort of get to those levels, right? So you may be able, by pitch count rules, to get to 80 or 85 pitches, as early as the beginning of the season, but I wouldn't suggest that a young teenager, go out and throw 80 pitches in the middle of May in the first or second game of the season. So I think you still need to be cautious about how you build pitchers up. Obviously, young kids, especially here in Canada, we don't have sort of that same ramp up that a lot of kids in the US do, where they're able to get outdoors before their high school season or summer season start. We're kind of limited to what we can work with at indoor facilities, and a lot of kids don't have access to that at all. So, maybe a progression with appropriate rest in between on how you sort of build up, right? And I think the other thing that I would mention there is that while, you may be able to throw 45 pitches on a Friday and come back and pitch on a Monday, well, that may be possible. I wouldn't recommend, throwing 80 pitches on that Monday. If you are going to come back on the necessary rest, be mindful of that next pitch count as well, on what you actually do get to.
All right, that's awesome, man. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Hope you stay safe in this interesting time, and we look forward to seeing you back around the ballpark soon.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.